A report has come out indicating the Toronto Raptors are still directionless, as the team doesn't know whether to maintain the status quo going into next year or full-out rebuild. So we'll break down that report, including some major Toronto Raptors coaching updates. That Nick Nurse, he ended up going to the Philadelphia 76ers. We have a couple of finalists now named, a couple of coaches that have been talked about in recent weeks out of the running. So we'll give you all the updates on that front, give the opinions on Nick Nurse, and a whole bunch more in this video. So without further ado, let's jump into the first topic of discussion. First thing we're taking a look at is something that has a lot of Raptors fans shook, as it seems like the team is still uncertain on their direction. Now, this is an unfortunate thing to hear. It might not be as horrible as it sounds at face value, but basically Kevin O'Connor gave us some insight into terms of where the Toronto Raptors front office is at, saying that it sounds like the team doesn't really know what they want to do. I think it's a genuine thing that we've seen reported. From conversations I've had, there's people in that front office that want to go full rebuild. And there's people in that office that want to maintain the status quo and continue to try and build up from here. There's differing philosophies. And yes, it's good to have different opinions, different things, different voices heard in your locker, in your front office, to make sure, you're choosing from the best of decisions, right? The best arguments are made and the best one wins out. But we're a month removed from the NBA playoffs. We're in the middle of a coaching search that has been ongoing for a very long time. Candidates are getting picked up left, right, and center now at this point. So the Raptors are still unclear on their direction. We could miss out on some of the top coaches. If we're still uncertain come the NBA draft, we might have a situation just like we had at this year's trade deadline where we give up future assets and we're still not sure if we're going to be a tanking team going into next season. So while I don't mind, I'm not going to be as super frustrated by this report and saying, I'm happy the Raptors are weighing out all their decisions. They have to figure out something quickly, because if they continue to sort of, kind of tank but kind of try to compete, it's just not going to work out. We're going to continue to be a middle-of-the-pack squad, and it's going to be another boring, embarrassing season for Raptors fans going into next year. So hopefully the team figures it out, but they haven't yet. So we'll see what ends up happening on that front. But the next thing we have to take a look at, and shook me to my core, it hurt me to see, but Nick Nurse has been hired by the Philadelphia 76ers. And this came out yesterday, and I've been traveling, so I've been, currently recording from Goody's house. Shout out Goody here. But I wanted to do a quick reaction to this, get the opinions out. It happened a day ago now. I don't know when this is going to get released. Probably tonight. A day ago at this point. But basically, Woj came out with the bomb saying that Nick Nurse has reached an agreement to become the next head coach of the Philadelphia 76ers. Nurse, who won an NBA championship, coach of the year with Toronto, now gets to coach the 2023 MVP. He's also congratulated by Fred VanVleet, saying, showing love to his coach. Fred also came on Shams' show, or some show, saying that he's got a bond with Nick Nurse there. So first thing I will say, congratulations to Nick Nurse. I know a lot of Raptors fans are down on the guy, but the coach won us an NBA championship. He did a lot of great things for this organization. So I'm happy he landed on his feet. But in Philadelphia, I know people don't think Nick Nurse is a good coach given his most recent season and all the flame that has been thrown at him, but this guy, when he has that talent, when he has a group in the same vein of the Philadelphia 76ers, right? He could completely turn around that team. And I might get roasted for saying this. Some people might not agree, but Nick Nurse has the capability to really, change up their offense, draw up some crazy schemes that could unlock Joel Embiid, who just won this year's Finals MVP, definitely not the Finals MVP, MVP of the season. Right, James Harden's still there, Tyrese Maxey. It's a talented roster in our division, and Nurse had to go there. I was hoping he was going to go to the Suns, so he's out of our division and all that, but I don't know. Congrats to Nurse. Happy he landed on his feet, but did it have to be in Philadelphia? I don't know. It's going to be extremely weird, especially with Joel Embiid, all the shade that he's thrown at Nick Nurse in post-game press conferences and all that in recent years. But we'll see what ends up happening on that front. But how do you guys feel about Nick Nurse going to the Sixers? But we got to talk about the Toronto Raptors coaching search, as apparently Sergio Scariolo has been named a finalist for the Toronto Raptors coaching position. So news came out, today. This one came out today from Michael Grange saying that Sergio Scariolo is reportedly a finalist for the Raptors coaching job. He was an assistant with Nick Nurse for 3 years and had unprecedented success with the Spanish national team. Won a championship with us. And speaking of Nurse as well, I want to mention in the last segment, It was confirmed that the Bucks selected Adrian Griffin over Nick Nurse. It wasn't him dropping out at the last second, and then they just had to pick Adrian Griffin. So that's something there. And Nurse might get replaced by another former assistant or get a job there with Sergio Scariolo. And he's a guy on the list that I'd be he's one of the more intriguing coaching candidates that I've seen brought up, discussed, as he has won a lot over there in Europe. Coach Team Spain, a lot of Italian League Cups, all that sort of stuff. And he won a championship. He was here during the glory days with the Toronto Raptors culture and bringing that voice back, bringing some more of that winning mentality. I'd like to see Sergio. There's a lot of candidates I'd like to see end up coaching the Toronto Raptors, but Sergio's a guy that's might be at the top of my list. I'm not sure who is the best candidate, best fit there, but one person who doesn't seem like they'll be getting the job is Becky Hammon, who's currently apparently out of the running for the Raptors coaching job. So Doug Smith gave a good breakdown on everything that's been going on, last couple of days, and basically said that Becky Hammon, the head coach of the WNBA's Las Vegas Aces, drew some initial interest, but she was never a serious candidate after, the interviews and all that sort of stuff. So for all the Becky Hammon folks out there, we're hoping she was going to get the job. Unfortunately, she's not in the running really anymore, didn't become a serious candidate. She also had something, a suspension going on with the Vegas Aces, with some shady back deals and all that, so maybe that hurt her chances of getting a coaching job with the Toronto Raptors, but wishing the best for Becky Hammon. Seems to having success. I don't think she's in a rush to jump on an NBA team's bandwagon. Would be some history made, but she's killing it for the Las Vegas Aces. So there's that there. And there's another coaching candidate, on the list. And it's Jordi Fernandez. And this is a name that, he coached for the Denver Nuggets for a little while. He's coaching the Sacramento Kings now. And he's also a guy that apparently, according to Mark Stein, is a name to watch in Toronto, slower moving than most coaching searches, saying one league source. He is the Sacramento Kings associate head coach. Fernandez, 40 years old, spent 6 seasons as an assistant coach with the Denver Nuggets before joining the Sacramento Kings this past season, bringing them to their first playoffs. He also spent time with the Cleveland Cavaliers as a player development coach in 2009 2013. So, Fernandez, another guy with a very solid resume, very, can't go wrong with these assistant coaches. Maybe you can go wrong, but it's tough to really gauge how well they will perform at the top of the bench versus how they were as an assistant. But given the resume being on those Denver Nuggets teams that overachieved with the injuries that they sustained in recent years, made the conference finals a couple seasons ago, and then going to Sacramento, not the craziest change of rosters. Obviously, Mike Brown was the head coach of that team, deservedly got a lot of praise, was coach of the year, but Jordi Fernandez going in there as well, changing the culture there in Sacramento. Would be a cool guy that I'd also be encouraged by if the Toronto Raptors brought him in. So we'll see who ends up actually getting this coaching job. But the final thing that we're breaking down in this video is Jaylen Brown disrespecting the G.R.O.A.T. And for people that didn't see, the Miami Heat almost blew a 3-0 lead, and Jaylen Brown was coming back, and Lowry did some Kyle Lowry things in the game against Jaylen Brown, grabbing the arms, doing his best defensive moments, not letting Jaylen Brown get any easy buckets. And Jaylen Brown was essentially coming out here calling him dirty, saying you're always doing that type of stuff, blaming the refs, telling him to review it, saying he's trying to break his arm, and just sounds real sooky. And Jaylen Brown's a guy that's on the open market. If we do end up blowing it up, could be a player that other teams are trying to bet against or, pitch against the Toronto Raptors. Say, hey, we can give this up for Jaylen Brown and all that. Doesn't seem like, even though he performed extremely poorly in that Game 7 against the Miami Heat, turn over the ball, not making threes, it doesn't seem like he'll be on his way out of Boston, given recent reports. But, Jaylen Brown, he was on his way out of the NBA playoffs after he it's roasting the G.R.O.A.T, and that's just how it goes. But, folks, let me know what you guys think about all this Toronto Raptors news. Subscribe to the channel if you guys haven't already. You guys are the best. I'm signing out. Cheers.